Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we are in the beautiful city of Chennai, surrounded by a lot of chaos, as you can see around us. There's some construction going on here, lots of activity going on, and here we are heading to work now. So, what are we going to talk about? I think we should speak about the experience we had during the session yesterday or day before yesterday. And Rob, do you want to talk about the experiment that we did, and then we come to the question? What is the question we want to ask from that experiment?
Because so many in our training in social psychology of risk, like all social psychology, we learn a great deal by experiment, not by propositions or by being lectured and someone telling us what the truth is. What we do is we often do experiments so that we can feel what the reality is. And so one of the experiments we often do is we talk about memory, and we ask for a volunteer. Someone comes out the front, we give them a reward for volunteering, and then what do? We tell them that we're going to have them to recall objects. And according to the research of Herbert Simon, who wrote the book quite some time ago, all human memory is quite limited, and he called it bounded rationality. And I've been doing this experiment for 20 years in Australian culture, and the experiment always works. And so according to Herbert Simon, in my culture, most people can remember about 7 or 8 things, but they're completely lost if it goes to 9 objects to remember in their short-term memory. And so all we do is we put 9 objects on the table and we cover them with a cloth, or they turn around and they have to recall what they just saw. So it's immediate and it's very quick. In my culture, it always works. They stop at either 7 or 8 objects and they can't remember the 9th object. And so I often make the point that in our culture, if we want to remember more than that, we often turn it into mnemonics, or we sing songs or various things, or we have patterns in various ways to remember those objects. But it always works in my culture that a person stops at 7 or 8. It confirms Herbert Simon's theory. We then did that experiment here in our workshop here, and it completely blew my mind. The first guy who got up easily recalled 8 or 9 objects without any problem, and what's more, he recalled them in the order in which we discussed them, and that was never done before either. Generally in my culture, they can't even do that. And so I thought, oh, well, that's an aberration. That doesn't happen. Does someone else want to volunteer? Someone else put the hand up. We came out. We had 9 new objects, and he did exactly the same. He remembered them exactly in order, and I was dumbfounded. I've never seen that happen before. My theory was blown clearly out the water, but what it taught us and what it taught me is that many of the theories which are thrown at us in Western culture about how people think are not always applicable in another culture. And this culture is very, very strong on sequential rote learning. In fact, it explains why in my culture in Australia, why so many Indian people dominate the market in medicine. Many of our doctors in our hospitals, in our practices, are Indians, because they are absolutely fantastic at the style of learning that suits the learning of medicine, to remember hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of detailed chemical, body parts, etc., and theories. And so that's often why our medical system in Australia is dominated by cultures where rote learning is common. So yeah, that was a big lesson for me. I was absolutely blown away. And then the person who I did the experiment with came back to me and explained why and how he did it, and in fact how easy it was. So yeah, that was a big lesson for me.
Yes, and also, Rob, it also explains why countries like UK, for example, or in the Western world, we struggle to get people into mathematics or physics or any sort of natural sciences and become doctors and engineers, and we actually turn to countries like India and China to attract that kind of a talent, because we ignore the importance of rote memory.
Yes.
We ignore the importance of another form of intelligence, another form of learning.
Another form, yeah.
Yes.
Howard Gardner said that all humans, again, it's another Western theorist, it's an American giving a theory on education and learning, but Howard Gardner said there were 8 or 9 different intelligences in learning. So musical intelligence, for example, is very, very different than say, an intelligence to do with the environment. You know, people are intelligent about plants and trees and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, Rob, I mean, rote memory or cramming, as some people would call it, is condemned in the West as it's not important.
Yes.
And far too much importance given to reflection and brain-centric understanding. The word
it's
understanding.
Not reflection, Nippin. It's a different form of brain-centric thinking. I think reflection and meditation is actually practiced very well here as well, but they separate that out quite differently as a different, because reflection is not like recall, memory recall. So yeah, I wouldn't use the word reflection, but I've seen such a different way of approaching education and learning here. Just amazing.
Yeah, and a word that you use, regurgitating.
Oh, regurgitating, yes.
It's like whatever you've been taught, you just got to repeat that.
Yes.
And what we do is we do it in a slightly different way. You can paraphrase it, but again, in the end, you come back to the same stuff.
Yes.
There's not much. Yes, you're right. So yes, we learned something new about the idea of bounded rationality, and I think there was a message there, as you picked up, Rob, that it's so important that we don't get trapped into our own myopic worldview. If we want to understand ourselves, go and look into another culture, observe another culture, and you might learn something about the limitations of your own worldview.
Well, and I think that's important because in Australia we have a small population, 27 million people. Of that population, 5 million of them, so 1/5 of our population comes from India and China. And those two cultures dominate engineering, information technology, information security and medicine. In other sectors like the health sector, where you've got allied health, or you've got things like counselling and social work, school teaching, actually you don't see many of those nationalities at all.
No.
So yes, it was a big lesson about culture. And it does also bring up the issue of the arrogance of some of these particular theories in Western culture, and we think because it only works in our culture, it works in all cultures.
That's the point.
And then we try to apply it to Indian people when they come to our culture. We make them conform to our assumptions.
Yes, and when you read 10 or 20 books, you're convinced that your worldview is wrong. Perhaps this is the right way to do it.
Yes.
And we lose any sense of perspective and diversity.
It becomes intellectual imperialism.
That's right. Oh, that's a good word to
Yeah.
end the podcast there.
Yeah.
Intellectual imperialism.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you, Rob.
Oh,
That
and
was
it
a
happens in safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.